They ignored you. They underestimated you. They laughed at your struggles and whispered that you would never rise. But what they couldn't see is that Allah was quietly working behind the scenes, removing what held you back, testing your patience, and shaping you into someone far stronger than yesterday's version of yourself. Every closed door, every betrayal, every moment you felt alone, it wasn't a punishment. It was protection. It was preparation. While they were busy judging, Allah was leveling you up, silently, intentionally, and powerfully. And now, the version of you they thought they knew is gone forever. This isn't a comeback. This is total domination. The chosen ones don't rise with noise. They rise with purpose, patience, and power. They thought they left you, like you were easy to replace, like your absence wouldn't matter. But what they failed to understand is that when Allah removes people from your life, it is never random and never meaningless, even if it feels painful in the moment, because what you saw as rejection was actually protection. What you felt as loss was actually redirection. And what looked like abandonment was in reality Allah clearing your path from people, environments, and attachments that were silently draining your energy, weakening your faith, and keeping you stuck in a smaller version of yourself. Because sometimes you hold on to things that feel good but are spiritually damaging, emotionally exhausting, and mentally distracting, and if Allah allowed them to stay, you would have stayed comfortable, distracted, and limited, never stepping into the discipline, clarity, and strength that your next level requires. So He removed them not because you weren't enough, but because you were too valuable to remain in a place that couldn't grow you. And every time someone walked away, every time a connection broke, every time a door closed, it wasn't to destroy you, but to rebuild you into someone who depends less on people and more on Him, someone who no longer chases validation but stands firm in self-respect, someone who no longer fears being alone but understands that isolation is where identity is forged and purpose becomes clear. Because weak people panic when they lose others, but chosen ones are shaped in solitude, strengthened in silence, and guided through separation. And once you truly understand this, the illusion breaks. You stop seeing yourself as the one who was left behind and start realizing you were the one Allah pulled out before it was too late, the one He protected from wasting more time, energy, and emotion in places that were never meant for your future. So now there is no reason to look back, no reason to question your worth, no reason to chase what left you, because that version of you who needed them no longer exists, and the person you are becoming doesn't beg, doesn't cling, doesn't break over people leaving instead. You walk forward with certainty, knowing that when Allah removes something from your life, it is not an ending, it is an elevation. Chosen ones, understand this clearly. Your silence was never your weakness, it was your transformation phase. Because while people thought you disappeared, while they assumed you had nothing going on, while they kept talking, judging, and underestimating you, you were being rebuilt in a way they could never understand. Because real growth doesn't happen in noise, it happens in isolation. It happens when Allah removes the distractions, the unnecessary voices, the constant need for attention, and forces you to sit with yourself, to face your thoughts, to confront your habits, and to rebuild your identity from the inside out. And most people can't handle that level of silence. They run back to distractions, to validation, to anything that keeps them from feeling empty. But you were chosen to go through it. You were chosen to feel that loneliness, so you could develop clarity, discipline, and control. Because when there is no one around to validate you, you either break or you become powerful. And you chose to become powerful. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped announcing your moves. You stopped needing people to understand you. And in that silence, something changed. Your focus became sharper. Your emotions became calmer. Your mindset became stronger. And your dependence shifted from people to Allah. And that is where real elevation begins. Because when your connection with Allah becomes stronger than your need for people, you become unshakable. You become someone who moves with purpose, not noise. Someone who builds in private and lets results speak in public. And now when people look at you, they are confused because they remember the version of you who needed attention, who used to talk more, explain more, react more. But that version is gone, and what replaced it is someone disciplined, composed, and focused. Someone who understands that silence is not emptiness but preparation, not absence but power. And that is why you must continue this path without breaking it, without going back to old habits, without seeking the same attention that once kept you stuck. Because chosen ones don't grow in crowds, they grow in silence. And if you protect that silence, it will build a version of you that no one can compete with. Chosen ones. You need to understand this at a deeper level. What you went through was never meant to break you. It was designed to rebuild you. Because that pain you felt, that heartbreak, that betrayal, that period where everything seemed to fall apart at once, it wasn't random and it wasn't unfair. It was precise, it was measured, and it was necessary, because comfort was keeping you weak. Comfort was keeping you distracted. Comfort was keeping you attached to people and habits that were slowly destroying your potential. So Allah introduced pain into your life, not to punish you, but to wake you up, to shake you out of illusions, to force you to see reality for what it truly is. And in that process, you were stripped of everything you relied on emotionally, the people you trusted, the situations you felt secure in, the expectations you had for your life. All of it was disrupted. And in that moment, it felt like loss. It felt like injustice. It felt like life was being hard on you for no reason. But what was actually happening was transformation, because pain has a way of exposing what comfort hides. It shows you who is real and who is fake. It reveals your own weaknesses, your emotional dependencies, your lack of control, and it forces you to either stay the same and suffer, or evolve and rise. And chosen ones are not given easy paths. They are given heavy tests, because they are being prepared for higher levels of responsibility, higher levels of awareness, higher levels of discipline. And that's why your pain felt deeper than others, because your growth is greater than others. And once you truly understand this, your mindset shifts completely. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What is this building inside me?" You stop running from discomfort and start using it as fuel. You stop seeing yourself as a victim and start seeing yourself as someone being trained, someone being upgraded, someone being shaped into a version that is mentally stronger, emotionally controlled, and spiritually grounded. Because real power is not built in ease. It is built in struggle, in patience, in endurance. And now, you are no longer the person who breaks under pressure. You are the person who adapts, who learns, who grows, who extracts wisdom from every hardship. And that is why what hurt you before will not hurt you the same way again. Because you are no longer operating at the same level, you have been upgraded. And once you reach this level of understanding, pain loses its power over you, and instead becomes your greatest advantage. Chosen ones. There was a time when you chased, when you needed people to respond, to validate you, to choose you, when you felt uneasy in silence and uncomfortable being ignored, so you explained yourself more than necessary. You gave more than you received. You tolerated disrespect just to keep connections alive. And you thought that was love. You thought that was loyalty. But in reality, it was attachment mixed with fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of not being enough. And that is exactly the state that keeps a person weak, because the moment your worth depends on people, you give them control over your emotions, your peace, and your identity. But something changed in you. Something shifted after all the disappointment, the broken expectations, and the repeated patterns of being undervalued. You got tired, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. And that exhaustion forced you to reflect, to step back, and to finally see the truth, that chasing people never brought you peace. It only made you lose yourself. And that is when you started detaching, not out of anger, but out of understanding. You stopped forcing conversations. You stopped trying to prove your worth. You stopped seeking attention. And slowly, you began to feel something you hadn't felt before: control, because now your mood was no longer tied to someone's reply. Your value was no longer based on someone's opinion, and your peace was no longer dependent on external validation. And this is where your real power began. Because in Islam, true strength comes when your dependence shifts from people to Allah, when you realize that no human being controls your provision, your value, or your destiny. And you start carrying yourself differently, with calmness, with certainty, with self-respect. Just like the example of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who was rejected, mocked, and opposed by his own people. Yet he never begged for their approval. He never lowered himself to be accepted. Instead, he remained firm, dignified, and focused on his mission, showing that true honor does not come from people choosing you, it comes from Allah guiding you. And once you understand this, you stop chasing completely. You don't move with desperation anymore. You move with purpose. You don't speak to be heard. You speak with intention. And you don't give your energy to everyone. You become selective, disciplined, and emotionally controlled. And this is the shift that confuses people, because they remember the version of you who was always available, always explaining, always trying. But now you are different. Now you are calm, distant, and grounded. Not because you don't care, but because you finally understand your worth. And that is why your reality starts changing. People start respecting you more. Not because you asked for it, but because you stopped needing it. And this is the final truth you must hold on to. Chosen ones do not chase, they attract. They do not beg, they position themselves. And they do not lose themselves trying to be accepted. They become so aligned with their purpose and their connection with Allah that the right people come naturally, and the wrong ones remove themselves without resistance. So your job now is simple. Protect your energy, maintain your detachment, and never go back to a version of yourself that needed people to feel complete, because the moment you stop chasing is the moment you step into your true power. Chosen ones, it is time for you to understand the power of becoming emotionally unshakable. Because there was a time when even the smallest things would destabilize you: the tone in a message, the look someone gave you, a casual comment, a rejection, a disagreement. Even minor criticism could make your mind spiral and your heart tremble. And back then, you didn't realize that your emotions were giving control of your life to everyone else. That your peace, your clarity, your focus, and your energy were constantly at the mercy of external circumstances, because you depended on people to feel safe, to feel validated, to feel worthy. And that dependence created chains you couldn't see, but that held you down. And every disappointment, every insult, every betrayal, every time someone failed to recognize your value, you felt it intensely. You let it define your day, your mood, and even sometimes your sense of self. And that is exactly what weak people do. They allow others to shape their reality, to shape their emotions, to determine whether they feel joy, fear, anger, or sadness. And that is why most people never reach their potential, because they are living under the invisible control of other people's actions, opinions, and decisions. But chosen ones are different, because at some point, after enough pain, after enough humiliation, after enough frustration, after enough times of being let down by those you trusted, Allah puts a seed of awareness inside you, a spark that begins to grow until it becomes a fire, and you realize that no one has the right to control your inner world, no one can dictate how you feel, and no one can decide your worth. And this is where true emotional unshakability begins. Because it doesn't happen overnight. It happens through trials, through patience, through reflection, through enduring things that feel unbearable and coming out stronger. Because every time you resisted the urge to react in anger, to chase validation, to explain yourself, to beg for understanding, you trained your mind, you strengthened your heart, and you proved to yourself that nothing external could break you unless you allowed it. And this is the wisdom that comes from detachment, the same principle that Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, demonstrated throughout his life. When he was insulted, opposed, slandered, rejected, and even physically attacked, yet he never let those actions affect his inner peace. He never lowered his standards of character. He never compromised his integrity. He remained calm, composed, and focused on his purpose, showing that emotional mastery is not about ignoring the world. It is about controlling yourself in the world. It is about refusing to let external chaos dictate your internal state. And when you internalize this lesson, you start observing life differently. You see the provocations, the manipulations, the petty conflicts, the unnecessary drama, and you simply don't engage, not because you don't care, not because you are cold, but because you are aware, because you understand that your energy is sacred, that your mental clarity is priceless, and that your focus is your weapon. And this awareness rewires your psychology, because where most people react impulsively, chosen ones respond consciously. Where most people lose their peace chasing people's approval or trying to fix situations that don't concern them, chosen ones remain steady, detached, and unshaken. And this is what makes you powerful, because emotional unshakability is the foundation for every other success in life, whether it is spiritual growth, personal development, or worldly achievement. Because if your emotions are unstable, your actions will be unstable, your decisions will be flawed, and your relationships will suffer. But when your emotions are grounded in awareness, trust in Allah, and self-discipline, you act with clarity, make decisions with wisdom, and interact with others without losing yourself. And this is the true mark of a chosen one, someone whose inner world is fortified to the point that even when betrayal, failure, loss, or injustice comes their way, they don't crumble, they don't panic, they don't spiral. Instead, they observe, they process, they respond strategically, and they grow. Because every challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen the foundation of their soul, every disappointment becomes a lesson in patience, and every obstacle becomes a test of trust in Allah. And once you reach this state, people around you start noticing a shift. They feel it unconsciously. They can sense that you are no longer reacting to them, no longer needing them, no longer controlled by them. And that changes the entire dynamic of your interactions, because now you attract respect, admiration, and cooperation without demanding it. And those who tried to destabilize you in the past lose their power, because you are no longer operating on the same level of emotional vulnerability. And this is why true chosen ones, those who are being elevated by Allah, are never shaken by the small things, because they understand that their battles are higher, their purpose is greater, and their destiny is protected. And you learn to carry yourself differently. You walk into rooms with calmness, you speak with intention, you make decisions with clarity, and you handle conflict with patience and dignity. And even when the world tries to push you around, you stand firm, because your emotional stability has become your shield, your anchor, and your sword. And in this process, you also start seeing the difference between temporary attachments and eternal support, between people who are here to complement your growth and people who are distractions, between fleeting opinions and the truth of Allah's guidance. And when you align your emotional state with your reliance on Allah alone, your heart becomes unshakable, your mind becomes disciplined, and your life begins to operate on a higher frequency, because you are no longer feeding into chaos, you are no longer reacting to nonsense, and you are no longer defined by others. You define yourself, you measure yourself, and you operate with a sovereignty of soul that few can reach. And this is the power of emotional mastery for chosen ones, the power to be untouched by noise, the power to convert challenges into strength, the power to extract wisdom from every trial, and the power to remain aligned with Allah's plan, calm in the storm, steady in the confusion, unshaken in adversity, because your emotions are no longer your enemy, they are your instrument of power, your compass of clarity, your foundation of dominance. And once you achieve this, no external force can destabilize you, no criticism can derail you, no betrayal can destroy you. And that is why emotional unshakability is not just a skill, it is a way of life. It is the mark of those who are chosen. It is the hallmark of true strength, and it is the key to walking through this world with confidence, purpose, and undeniable authority. Chosen ones. Now it is time to understand a truth that few ever grasp the moment you begin to truly see people for who they really are. Your life changes forever, because before this awakening, you may have been naive, trusting too quickly, giving chances that were never deserved, believing in words that were hollow, expecting loyalty that didn't exist. And in that state, you were constantly disappointed, confused, and drained, because human beings naturally project what they wish to be rather than what they truly are. And until you learn to read beneath the surface, you remain vulnerable to manipulation, deception, and emotional exhaustion. But Allah, in His infinite wisdom, teaches chosen ones to develop insight, to gain perception, to cultivate clarity, and to see beyond appearances. And this clarity often comes through trials, betrayals, and moments of being misled, because nothing sharpens your vision more than realizing that those you trusted were not what they seemed. And as your awareness grows, you begin to notice patterns that were invisible before, the way someone's actions contradict their words, the repeated cycles of empty promises, the subtle manipulations, and the hidden agendas. And this is when you stop being blind to the intentions of others, when you stop being emotionally reactive to their facades, and when you understand that your time, energy, and emotion are far too valuable to be spent on illusions, because weak people continue to trust blindly, continue to chase those who don't deserve them, continue to make themselves available to those who will take without giving, and that is why they remain trapped in cycles of disappointment, regret, and instability. But chosen ones are different, because they have been trained by Allah to detach from illusion, to recognize the truth, and to act with discernment. And this discernment is not about becoming cold or unkind. It is about protecting your soul, preserving your energy, and walking in alignment with your purpose, because every person who comes into your life is either meant to be a blessing, a lesson, or a test. And once you understand this, you no longer waste your time trying to force people to fit where they don't belong. You no longer overextend for validation. You no longer tolerate disrespect in the name of loyalty, and your interactions become intentional, measured, and controlled. Just like the example of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who surrounded himself with people he trusted, who evaluated character over words, who knew the intentions of hearts without being deceived by appearances, and yet he remained compassionate and fair, because insight does not mean cruelty, it means wisdom. And as you grow into this level of awareness, you begin to notice the difference between people who complement your growth and those who are obstacles, between relationships that elevate your soul and those that drain it, between words that are true and words that are empty. And this is why your life starts to feel lighter, because you stop carrying the weight of pretenders, of false friends, of toxic energy, and you stop questioning yourself, wondering why people fail to meet your standards. Because you understand that their failure is not your problem, it is their choice, their nature, and their path. And with this understanding, your boundaries naturally strengthen, your decisions become clearer, and your energy becomes sacred, because you no longer allow anyone to enter your life without purpose, without respect, and without alignment with your growth. And this is a form of power few people recognize, because it is subtle, quiet, and unseen. Yet it transforms your entire reality, because once you start seeing people clearly, you begin to interact with the world differently. You no longer react emotionally to petty conflicts. You no longer allow others' insecurities to infect your mindset. You no longer expend your energy on drama, manipulation, or games. And in this state, your presence becomes magnetic, because people are naturally drawn to clarity, honesty, and confidence. And those who were once confusing or unreliable begin to drift away without force, because you no longer need to control, persuade, or fix them. And this shift creates an environment where only truth, growth, and alignment remain around you. And the more you trust this process, the stronger you become, because your insight now guides your interactions, your discernment protects your peace, and your focus remains on what truly matters: your purpose, your relationship with Allah, your inner growth, and your preparation for the next level of elevation. And as you continue down this path, chosen ones, you realize that seeing people clearly is not just about avoiding pain or betrayal. It is about reclaiming your sovereignty, your dignity, your energy, and your identity. Because the moment you understand who deserves your time and who does not, the moment you recognize who aligns with your mission and who distracts you, the moment you act intentionally rather than reactively, you step into a space where life flows in your favor, where your relationships strengthen, where your choices become effortless, and where the unnecessary fades away, leaving only clarity, power, and purpose. And this is why Allah teaches chosen ones to see deeply, to discern subtly, and to act wisely. Because life will never be perfect, people will always disappoint, and challenges will always arise. But once your vision is true, your path becomes clear, your heart remains unshaken, and your destiny unfolds according to His plan. And that is the ultimate strength of a chosen one, the ability to navigate the world with eyes wide open, mind fully aware, heart steady, and soul aligned. Because now, you are no longer blind to intentions, no longer misled by appearances, and no longer trapped in illusions. And in that truth, you discover freedom, confidence, and undeniable power. Chosen ones, now comes the ultimate realization, the truth that separates those who are truly elevated from those who merely exist. The moment you understand that you were always chosen, that every trial, every struggle, every period of waiting, every heartbreak, every betrayal, every time the world seemed to turn against you, it was never a sign of weakness, a punishment, or a mistake, but rather a precise preparation. Because Allah, in His infinite wisdom, had already determined that you were destined for a higher path, a greater purpose, and a level of elevation that most people can only dream of. And the reason you did not see it before was not because it wasn't real, but because your eyes, heart, and mind were not yet ready to perceive it, because chosen ones are always prepared in silence, in solitude, in moments where life strips away everything familiar, everything comforting, everything that distracts from the real mission. And while ordinary people panic when they are left alone, chosen ones learn to embrace the emptiness, to see it as a canvas, to understand that the isolation, the losses, the disappointments, the betrayals, the closed doors, the people who walked away, all of it was not a rejection of you, but a careful rearrangement by Allah to place you exactly where you need to be. And this is where true awakening occurs. Because once you internalize this, you stop seeing life as a series of random events. You stop measuring your worth by people who were never meant to stay. You stop being a victim of circumstances, and you begin to see the invisible guidance that has always been present, leading you, shaping you, protecting you, and elevating you in ways that are quiet, subtle, and profound. And it is in these moments that you finally recognize that the version of you who begged for attention, who sought approval, who feared being alone, who tolerated disrespect, who over-explained, who compromised your peace for the sake of acceptance, that version of you is gone forever. Because chosen ones are not reborn into their old selves, they are upgraded, and this is not an upgrade of appearance, wealth, or status alone. It is an upgrade of mind, heart, spirit, resilience, clarity, and purpose. And once you embrace this, you realize that every challenge you endured, every test you passed, every time you felt powerless, confused, or invisible, it was an intricate process of refinement, a divine design to strip away the unnecessary, reveal the truth, strengthen the foundation, and prepare you for levels of leadership, influence, and impact that ordinary people could never comprehend. because those who are chosen cannot rise without facing hardships that are proportionate to their destiny. And that is why your journey has been unlike anyone else's, because while others were chasing temporary pleasures, fleeting approval, and shallow recognition, you were being trained to master yourself, to understand the world through wisdom, to act with discipline, and to align every decision, every action, and every thought with a higher purpose. And this is where your perspective shifts completely, because you start to see that what looked like failures were actually lessons, what looked like loss was actually protection, what looked like isolation was actually preparation, and what looked like rejection was actually redirection. And as this understanding deepens, you begin to embody the characteristics of the truly chosen, the characteristics that the prophets exemplified throughout history, like Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who faced relentless opposition, mockery, betrayal, and hardship, yet he never wavered in his purpose, never begged for acceptance, never sought validation from those who opposed him, and yet he remained compassionate, patient, firm, wise, and unshakable, demonstrating that being chosen does not mean life is easy. It means that life will challenge you to elevate you. It means your path will be filled with trials, specifically calibrated to prepare you for the greatness that Allah has planned. And this is why you must embrace every part of your journey, the painful and the joyful alike, because each step is a divine tool to forge your character, sharpen your intellect, strengthen your faith, deepen your resilience, and align you with your destiny. And once you reach this realization, you start to walk differently, think differently, speak differently, and act differently, because you no longer measure your life by others' standards, opinions, or approval. You no longer allow temporary discomfort to shake your long-term vision, and you no longer waste energy on people, situations, or illusions that do not contribute to your growth. And in this state, chosen ones develop an aura, a presence that commands respect without demanding it, that draws the right people naturally, and repels those who are not meant to be part of your path. And this is not arrogance, this is alignment, because when your energy is protected, your focus is clear, your purpose is defined, and your connection with Allah is unwavering. You become untouchable in ways that others cannot comprehend, because power, influence, and impact flow naturally from inner alignment. And once you fully internalize this, the concept of waiting becomes irrelevant, because patience is no longer passive, it is active preparation. It is a constant building of strength, wisdom, and clarity. And you understand that what is meant for you will come, and what is not will be removed, not as punishment, but as mercy, because the divine design is perfect. And once you accept this truth, fear disappears, doubt disappears, and insecurity disappears, because you know your worth is defined by Allah alone, your path is guided by Him alone, and your destiny is secured by Him alone. And in that awareness, you find freedom unlike anything you've ever experienced, a freedom that allows you to live boldly, love deeply, act decisively, and pursue your purpose relentlessly, without hesitation, without apology, without compromise. And this is the final level of realization for chosen ones, where you no longer seek validation, you no longer chase recognition, you no longer plead for acceptance, you no longer fear being alone, because you know that your life, your journey, and your elevation have been orchestrated from the beginning, that you were always prepared for this, that you were always protected, that you were always guided, and that you were always chosen. And once you fully step into this truth, you carry yourself with a certainty that cannot be shaken, a calmness that cannot be disturbed, a focus that cannot be distracted, and a presence that cannot be ignored. And the world finally sees you for what you truly are, not because you demand it, not because you announce it, but because your alignment, your clarity, your purpose, and your connection with Allah radiate naturally. And that is the essence of being chosen, the understanding that elevation is not a reward, it is a process that requires patience, faith, discipline, reflection, endurance, self-mastery, and unwavering trust in Allah. And when you live this fully, when you embody this completely, you become unstoppable, unshakable, and undeniable. Because you are no longer defined by what has happened to you. You are defined by who you are becoming. And the moment you internalize this, the moment you step fully into this understanding, you realize the most powerful truth of all. You were always chosen. You were always meant for greatness. And nothing, no person, no circumstance, no obstacle, no betrayal, no hardship, no moment of doubt can ever change that. Because your path, your destiny, and your elevation have been written by Allah with precision, wisdom, and love. And now it is your responsibility to walk it boldly, to live it fully, and to embrace the truth that you are, and always have been, one of the chosen ones. Now that you have walked through every lesson, now that you have faced the truths that life, Allah, and destiny have shown you, it is time to step fully into the reality of who you are, because all the pain, all the isolation, all the betrayals, all the losses, all the moments of doubt, fear, and confusion were never meant to break you. They were meant to prepare you, to elevate you, and to reveal your true power. And you must understand that being chosen does not mean life will be easy. It means life will challenge you, test you, and push you to levels of strength, awareness, and discipline that ordinary people cannot even imagine. And every trial was calibrated for your growth. Every door that closed was protection. Every person who left was a lesson. And every hardship was a tool to sharpen your mind, strengthen your heart, and deepen your connection with Allah. So stop looking back at the version of yourself who begged for validation, who sought approval, who tolerated disrespect, and who feared being alone, because that version no longer exists, and the person you are becoming, calm, focused, disciplined, unshakable, and aligned with your purpose, is exactly who Allah intended you to be. And as you move forward, remember this: your worth is defined by Allah, your destiny is guided by Him, and your elevation is secured by Him, and no one else, no circumstance, and no betrayal can diminish that truth. So protect your energy, maintain your detachment, keep your focus on your mission, and embrace every moment, every challenge, every opportunity as a stepping stone toward the greatness you were always meant to achieve. Because chosen ones do not chase, they attract. They do not beg, they dominate. They do not fear, they rise. And when you fully accept this, when you fully embody it, you become unstoppable, undeniable, and unshakable. And the world finally sees you not because you demand it, but because your alignment, clarity, discipline, and connection with Allah radiate naturally. And that is the ultimate power of a chosen one. To walk through life with certainty, purpose, and divine protection, knowing that you were always elevated, always destined, and always chosen.